12 years, all with the Patriots, 3 rings. 7th-round pick at Kent State. Dad coach, quarterback, goes and becomes a legend with Tom Brady. Julian Edelman, now Fox Sports analyst. So good to have you again. He's on NFL Fox Kickoff at 11 in the morning and do a great job describing things succinctly. You're very good. Okay, let's dive in. This will be all over Sports Talk Radio in Boston. So let's just do it. So I'm gonna throw something out and suggest to you that when coaches have too much power, Pete had it for a couple years in Seattle, and the drafting went into the tank. And I think Bill, the GM, is hurting Bill, the coach. And listen, he's lost, Dante, Josh McDaniels, Brady, Ernie Adams. That's a lot of brain power. Bill's a defensive guy. Is it a fair suggestion that maybe Bill has a bit too much power and they need a fresh new set of eyes in drafting?
I think he needs a little help on the offensive side. I mean, you look at the defensive picks, they all look pretty good. I mean, they always come out and they perform. The Christian Gonzalez kid, before he got hurt, looked like he was playing good. But, I mean, we have whiffed, and I hate talking about coach like this, but we have whiffed on a lot of offensive skill position players, starting from, I don't want to call guys out, but there are 3-4 receivers when I was playing that we got in top rounds that,
You knew early.
You look in camp, and you can always see from a guy that's drafted high. You see one trait. They're raw, but you could see one trait. Oh, yep, that's a first-rounder. You're looking, and I was like, what's going on here? That's not a first-rounder. I don't know what's going on. So I think he would be the first to tell you that he's had some screw-ups. He's a very accountable guy, and I do think that, that they probably do need a little more help on the offensive side of scouting or something, but you look at this, like, I'm still a little shook on the Jacoby Myers departure.
We didn't get that either.
I didn't get that.
He could separate a little.
He could separate a lot. He could run routes. He was tough in the run game. He would go in and block the force, and that's what you preach as a New England receiver: get open, catch the ball, and block in the run game. Those are the 3 things that you hear all the time. And, it's just this receiver group we have, it just seems like they're struggling to create separation regardless of the reason. They haven't been able to separate. And I've been really hard on Mac, and I've been watching, and it's tough. A guy's a little open. That's still open, but they're still not giving him
Bryce Young.
right.
Bryce Young's facing the same thing. There's no separation.
Very hard. I mean, it's very hard when your top receivers, Adam Thielen, which is a really good receiver, but he's a good complementary receiver at this stage of his career. I mean, he's 33 years old.
Right.
You want some speed, some guys that can get up and make moves and create separation at the top of the route, win at the beginning of the route. There's 3 phases of the route. You win at the beginning of the route, the stem, or at the top of the route. And I'm not seeing really any of that with the Patriots around. They just seem out of funk.
Yeah, and there was a brain drain, yourself included. Tom, you, Josh, Ernie, Dante. You guys are all Hall of Fame level brains, players, quarterbacks. And it's like any company. They call it brain drain. You just lose a lot of good people in marketing. Well, marketing's not as good. You make poor decisions, and I think that's part of it. The Brock Purdy thing, you're a 7th-round pick, so is Brock Purdy. And I've been saying this, once you're in the room, nobody gives a rip where you were picked. And it's like, I don't know how good he is, but Julian, he sees the field quick. C.J. Stroud has this. Like, I watch him. He sees the whole field. And I don't know what that is, right? There's some guys do and some guys don't. But I watch Purdy, and I'm like, oh, I could ride with this guy. Like, I know he didn't have the biggest arm, but Tommy didn't.
Yeah.
Like, what do you see that you like about him?
Processing. I see that he processes quick, and you have to think about the relationship between play caller and quarterback. Do they not seem like they're just clicking?
Yeah.
They are clicking. Like, you look on the other end of this past weekend against, Dallas. Look at that situation. Is that relationship between play caller and quarterback? Do you think Dak and
Schottenheimer?
No, Dak and McCarthy. Do you think they finish each other's sentence? I don't.
No.
I don't. You could say that about Brock and Shanahan. I mean, this guy, they have a lot of weapons, but he's going out and he's executing situations. He's playing on time. He hasn't even really had to get to his second or third read, which tells me that, like, the play calling is right there, and they do have a lot of talent. But, you need someone to go out there and point guard that talent. And Brock Purdy, he's playing his tail off, and his arm's not even where it needs to be. You could still see 3 or 4 throws where, like, he has to use his anticipation because his UCL is not completely healed. I expect him to get better.
Yeah. It is interesting. I said this a couple hours ago, and I think I repeated it, is that the league's gotten really smart very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
McDaniel, McVay. I mean, Sean McVay is duct taping that O-line. That offense is
this could be his most impressive coaching job.
I'm watching yesterday. Let's take that game. Philadelphia, I don't know what the comp is, but their O-line and D-line play. It's just Canton, Ohio guys. And here's the Rams. It's Aaron Donald and kids. I mean, it's when I watch McVay, Shanahan, McDaniel, I think that guy in Indianapolis with Gardner Minshew.
Mm-hmm.
Is it when you watch a game, do you sense, because of the rule changes, if you were owner of a team, you almost have to get an offensive guy?
It's a quarterback league, and when you draft a young quarterback or you're designing an offense, like I said, it goes back to that relationship between the play caller and the quarterback. And when the head coach is the play caller, I mean, I was on a defensive-minded head coach team. So, like, anytime we were in film, anytime the defense had a bad practice, we had a bad practice. It goes a different, you know what I mean? So that's how it goes. I would say, yeah, I mean, this is where the league's going with the rule changes and everything. You got to have a guy that can go and massage these young quarterbacks and get creative.
A lot of it's that, Julian. It's the massaging of seventh-rounder, Iowa State. I mean, now, Bill didn't do that much with Tom. He wasn't much of a massager. But, again, is that because Tom could be hard coached?
I think Bill taught Brady differently. Like, they had a different type of relationship where Bill taught Brady defenses. They would meet every Monday for 3 hours and go over the defense that they were going over, like every week. Every Monday, Bill and Brady would sit and watch film, and Bill would give Brady his takes on what he thought the defense was trying to do, and they probably developed a relationship, and that's what Bill's, 2 cents went into with Brady. I mean, he taught him.
But they did have a relationship.
They had a relationship, yeah. I mean, they were together for 20 years. You tell me a marriage that doesn't have little bumps in the road after 20 years,
Right.
So, yeah, I do, going back to what you were saying earlier, right now with how this league is going, with the rule changes, with the speed, with the amount of, who's getting paid right now, the receivers, the quarterbacks, tight ends. I mean, it'd be smart to probably go in that offense direction. Now, I'm not saying that a defensive-minded coach can't get it done, but if you're going to have a defensive-minded coach, you probably want to bring someone on the offensive side that is, got that whole shtick going with this new. I think it's the evolved West Coast system.
Yeah. We were talking about Detroit earlier. So when you have a losing culture, and Detroit's drafted well, they brought in new pieces. Goff's always been a good baller. Mm-hmm. He can play. And then, so in New England, Bill lost in Cleveland, lost early in New England, first year and a half, and you're building the winning culture. So you entered a winning culture. So you may not even recognize some of the nonsense, but you've had friends or teammates that came from losing culture. So the Lions, a losing culture, and now they got dudes. A lot of them. And outside of Philly and San Francisco, I watch them play, and I'm like, they dragged Green Bay. It wasn't close. There's probably a lot of little things that I don't see that a winning culture has. But when you talk to guys, when they came to New England, did they ever confide in you? Man, you guys do stuff at practice we don't even consider.
Yeah, I think that comes with leadership. In New England, when I first got there, You had studs like Teddy Bruschi, Kevin Falk, Tom Brady, the guys that were your best players. They were your highest paid players, but they were your hardest working players. They were the players that were keeping everyone in check. They were the players that were challenging everyone. They were the players that were making everyone accountable. They were the players that would always say, the more you can do. And that's where you try to flip that. I remember when guys would come, free agents would come, they'd be like, I don't know how you guys practice like that, like how you guys practice. Our practices were very competitive.
Every day?
Every day. You know, I mean, it's changed now with the rule changes. You can only have one padded practice for like 14 weeks or something. But they were very competitive. We would do tackling drill up until the Super Bowl because it's a fundamental that we had to work. The game comes down to blocking and tackling, and you see so many teams lose on these little fundamentals. So, yeah, I think it has to do with the leadership in the locker room. And if you look at Detroit, look at Jared Goff. Like, I played against Jared Goff when we were in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Bill was giving him crazy looks on defense, and you could tell this kid, his confidence was shot. It was shot in that game because he didn't know it was coming. You look two weeks ago when they're playing the Packers and he throws a pick in the first drive.
Yep.
Then he comes back and he rallies the team down for a touchdown drive, and they went on and blew him out. Like, that shows me he's had growth in his career, and he's become a leader. And he's become the flag carrier for MCDC and that whole preach of we need to have a mentally tough team, because he's firsthand been a mentally tough player. Gets shipped out of L.A. They go win a Super Bowl.
Got the crap beat out of him at Cal.
Exactly. I mean, so I think it has a lot to do when you're trying to flip a culture. It has to do with your leadership.
Yeah. I got to ask you one more question. So the Jags early in the season dropped so many passes. Even Calvin Ridley, who's great. Baltimore yesterday just dropped touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Who do I blame? I don't want to do the blame game, but I'm sure you've had, you're recognized for the Atlanta catch. You didn't drop many. Is it prep? Is it weather? Are there angles that it is harder to catch? Is it when you see a team going through, it's almost like it's contagious. Guys are thinking about it.
Catching's confidence. And sometimes that was an early game yesterday with the Ravens. They're playing against a team they should probably beat the crap out of. And, a lot of guys are probably sitting there like, oh, we're going to blow these guys out. And then the game starts and the Steelers come out, start fast. And even though they didn't start fast, but it's one of those things where it's a confidence thing that you have to do all the time, repetition to keep those things, tightened and dialed. I remember I would always have to wake up early in the morning to do these tennis ball drills against the wall for reaction and change the colors and all that stuff, because I needed to get my eyes dialed ready for the day, because you got to get right. Like sometimes that ball gets on you. You don't want to be the guy that drops the ball first play of practice. There's an accountability factor. So, you look at the drops yesterday, Mark Andrews, he doesn't really drop the ball. That's kind of uncharacteristic. Aguilar, he's had a couple drops in his career that we've all seen.
Yeah.
I mean, so is what it is. Zay Flowers, he's a rookie. So, they got to get some things together. And sometimes a game like this will bring them together. And if you look at a John Harbaugh team, like, especially with that rivalry between the Steelers and them, they're going to be around when it all comes said and done, because they're just mentally tough and they always figure a way out. And they do make it harder on themselves a lot of the times, but they'll figure it out. And you can never bet against Mike Tomlin against the Ravens. I mean, I called it yesterday when we were in the avocado room. I'm like, this is a prime Mike Tomlin game. Get a win out of nowhere, because
and no offense.
No offense. The quarterback's got a hurt knee. Their defense can't stop nobody, and they find a way to win this game. And that just, that goes to your defensive coach right
and
there.
your culture.
And the culture.
Pittsburgh wins more games they shouldn't.
You could say the same thing about the Ravens.
Yeah.
Ravens do that too. They also lose a lot of games they shouldn't either, but then they'll win a game they shouldn't. So, they're cultured up, those two teams.
It's great seeing you, my man. By the way, Peyton and Russ, how's it going to end?
I don't think good.
1-5 if they lose to the Chiefs.
Yeah,
a lot of tension.
What's the exit? How do you exit that whole contract? Can you exit that contract?
I mean, I think
it doesn't start until next year, right?
Right. The only thing I can think of, because they need draft capital for defense, But if you drafted a quarterback, you get Michael Penix from Washington, you have the 9th pick. And you're like, let's just see what we can get out of Russ. By the way, Niners gave up a bunch of picks for Trey Lance, gave it up. Their roster's fine. If you hit on a quarterback, Julian, and you don't have to pay him for 4 years, you can do crazy stuff.
Niners have also hit on a lot of other players. They hit on Kittle. They hit on everyone on defense. They've hit, on everyone except the one free agent they brought in who was Christian McCaffrey. So, you could have a miss here and there, but when you hit on key, guys,
especially 4th, 5th guy,
I mean, they've done a really good job of coming up with some crazy talent. I mean, did any of us think Warner would turn into the player he is?
He's the best linebacker in the game.
In the game from BYU. I remember watching those guys at training camp. This guy's doing tribal things after practice, smelling the grass. The guy loves football. And that's another thing. Niners, all those guys look like they love football. They love football. You look at Trent Williams, their tackle, he loves football. I mean, that's another thing. A lot of these teams, you got to find guys that are loving football. A lot of guys are, they love being famous. They love getting likes and TikTok this and that. I sound like Belichick. It's crazy. I've heard him too much. Snap face, but, you got to find guys that love the game.
No, San Francisco's an easy I know Dallas fans don't like him. Easy team for me to watch and like.
It is. And the only thing I worry is that they're peaking a little early, and then you catch an injury bug. That's the one thing that could derail this thing, because all these teams that they're playing, they're going to take this back and they're going to learn from it. And there's going to be one team that comes from, week 8 and just starts playing. They get healthy.
Hot, underdog. Yep.
It reminds me of those New York Giants teams that beat us in the Super Bowl.
Oh, that was rough. I'm sorry about that. Those were painful days.
These are painful days for the Patriots.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.